You walk into the room and you feel it before you even take your coat off. 12 people. 6 conversations already running. Someone laughing so hard they have to put their drink down. And you. Standing just inside the doorway holding your phone like it's a life raft, scanning for a single face that will turn toward you and say, "Oh hey, come here." No one turns, not because they're cruel, not because they even notice, they're just already inside something, a joke that started 2 years ago, a group chat you're not in, a rhythm that formed long before you showed up. Your brain starts narrating. Why does everyone already know each other? Is there something wrong with me? Did I miss the window? Am I the only adult on earth who doesn't have this figured out? Wait, here's the part almost nobody says out loud. You didn't miss a window. There was never a window. Adult friendship isn't something you catch if you're fast enough. It's something you build, brick by brick, usually while feeling like an idiot the entire time. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not too much, or too quiet, or too late. Every single person in that room, even the loudest one, has stood exactly where you're standing, in some room, at some point, wondering if they'd ever belong anywhere again. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why grown-up friend groups feel like closed doors, why your brain reads that closed door as rejection when it almost never is, and, more importantly, you're going to know the specific, almost invisible moves that turn a stranger's group into your group, without you having to fake being someone you're not. Let's get into it. Most people believe that friend groups are closed clubs. Fixed. Finished. Like a play that already cast its roles and started its run, and you showed up to opening night holding a resume nobody asked for. But here's the real truth. Groups are not walls. They're patterns. And patterns, unlike walls, are always, quietly, looking for a new rhythm to fold into. Think about your own nervous system for a second. When you walk into a room full of established connection, your body does something ancient. It scans for threat before it scans for opportunity. That tight feeling in your chest, that voice that says nobody wants you here. That's not truth. That's your amygdala doing its oldest job, treating social uncertainty like it might be actual danger, the same circuitry that used to decide whether a stranger's tribe would feed you or leave you outside the fire. That feeling is real. But it is not information about how welcome you actually are. It's information about how uncertain the moment is. And uncertainty always feels like rejection before it's had time to resolve into anything else. Here's what changes everything once you understand this. The people already inside that group are not guarding a fortress. Most of them are quietly, secretly, a little bit lonely too, even the ones laughing the loudest. Because closeness that formed years ago doesn't automatically stay warm. It calcifies. It becomes routine instead of nourishment. And somewhere in that circle right now, there is at least one person who would give almost anything for someone new to walk in and make the group feel alive again. You are not an intruder standing outside a finished thing. You are a possible answer to a question. Most of that room doesn't even know it's asking. And once you see this pattern, you'll start noticing it everywhere. At work, at the gym, at your cousin's barbecue, in every room where you assumed the seats were already taken. Here's where it shows up first. This is the one most people never figure out. Call it the myth of the missing invitation. Most people wait to be invited in. They stand at the edge of a group, hoping someone will notice them long enough to hand them a formal reason to exist inside the circle. A wave, a name tag, an official welcome. But here's what nobody explains. Belonging is rarely handed out. It's built through small, repeated proof. Proof that you're safe to be around. Proof that you add rather than take. Proof delivered in tiny moments, not grand gestures. Picture 2 versions of the same person at the same office lunch table. Version 1 sits at the edge, arms crossed, phone lit up under the table, waiting for someone to ask her a direct question before she'll speak. Her shoulders are turned slightly away from the group, like she's already decided she'll be leaving soon. Version 2 sits at the same table, doesn't wait for permission. Notices someone struggling to open a stubborn ketchup packet and just says, "Here, let me," and hands over a napkin at the same time. Small. Almost nothing. But her body is angled toward the table, not away from it. In version 2's head, something quiet is happening. She's thinking, I don't need them to already like me. I just need to be a person worth noticing today. That's the whole secret. Belonging isn't granted through invitation. It's built through contribution. Tiny, low stakes, repeated contribution. Until one day, the group realizes you've been part of it for weeks without anyone ever officially deciding so. And once that shift happens, something in you settles. You stop performing for a verdict. You start just showing up as yourself, one small offering at a time. This is where it gets really interesting. Most people think the goal, the very first time they're around a new group, is to be liked, instantly, completely, by everyone. But here's the deeper truth. Trying to be liked by everyone immediately is exactly what makes you feel, and look, the most anxious. Not more jokes, not more energy, not performing your most impressive stories on a loop. But one person in that circle, actually seeing you, actually remembering something true about you, is worth more than the whole room finding you entertaining for an hour and forgetting you by Tuesday. Picture the version of you that walks into a new group trying to win everyone over at once, talking a little too fast, laughing a beat too early at other people's jokes, watching every face for approval like a scoreboard. Your shoulders are tense. Your eyes are darting from person to person, never resting anywhere long enough to actually connect. Now picture the other version. You walk in, and instead of trying to be interesting to 12 people, you pick one person, ask one real question, and actually wait for the answer. You let your eyes rest. You let a silence sit for half a second instead of rushing to fill it. Something in that one person registers, quietly, almost without them noticing. This person actually listened to what I said. That's the moment a stranger becomes an ally inside the group. Not because you performed well for the room, because you made one person feel seen in a room where most people are just waiting for their turn to talk. And when you let go of winning everyone, you free yourself up to actually win someone, which, it turns out, is the only thing that was ever going to work anyway. Here's the part no one talks about, the awkward middle stretch. Most people expect that once they've made a decent first impression, things will smooth out fast. A few good hangouts and suddenly they're inside the group, easy and effortless, like flipping a switch. But here's what actually happens, almost every time. There is a middle stretch, usually somewhere between the 3rd and the 10th hangout, where it still feels weird. You still don't quite get the inside jokes. You still hesitate before texting the group chat first. You still leave some gatherings wondering if you're actually part of this or just being tolerated. This stretch is not a sign that it's not working. It is the process working exactly the way it's supposed to. Think about it like scar tissue, but in reverse. Instead of distance slowly hardening between people, closeness slowly forms the exact same way, through hundreds of small, unremarkable, repeated moments that nobody consciously notices happening. You don't become close to a group in one dramatic conversation. You become close to a group the way a callus forms, quietly, through repetition, until one day it's just there, and it doesn't hurt anymore. Picture the difference between someone who quits in the awkward middle and someone who pushes through it. One stops showing up after the 3rd slightly stilted hangout, deciding quietly, this clearly isn't going to work. The other keeps showing up anyway. To the barbecue where she doesn't know half the references. To the game night where he sits out the first round because he doesn't know the rules yet. Not because it feels good yet, but because she's decided the discomfort is temporary and the belonging is worth waiting for. Somewhere around hangout number 7, someone in the group turns to her without thinking and says, "Wait, you have to come to this one too." And she realizes, quietly, almost without noticing the shift, I didn't do anything dramatic, I just didn't leave. That's the part nobody tells you. Consistency, not chemistry, is what turns strangers into your people. And once you trust that the awkward middle is temporary, you stop mistaking discomfort for evidence that you don't belong, which is exactly what opens the door to what comes next. This is where it gets really interesting. Most people think that to belong somewhere, they need to blend in, laugh at the same jokes, adopt the same opinions, mirror the same energy, disappear a little into the shape of the group. But here's what changes everything. Groups don't fall in love with copies of themselves. They fall in love with the person who adds a color that wasn't in the room before you arrived. Not silence about who you are. Not shrinking your opinions down to nothing so no one's ever uncomfortable. Not becoming a slightly quieter version of everyone else at the table. But someone secure enough to bring their actual self into a room and let that self be useful, different, and real. Picture someone at a friend group's trivia night who genuinely doesn't know a single answer about football, and instead of going quiet with embarrassment, leans in and says, "Okay, I'm useless here, but ask me anything about true crime and I will win this round for us." And the table lights up because suddenly there's a new kind of value in the room that wasn't there 5 minutes ago. Now picture the version of that same person who just goes quiet instead, nodding along to a category she knows nothing about, terrified that admitting a gap will make her look like she doesn't belong. In the first version, something shifts in the group's collective, unspoken sense of the evening. Someone thinks, quietly, "Oh, she's actually fun, we needed her here." Belonging was never about matching the room, it was about adding to it. And the parts of you that feel the most different are usually, ironically, the exact parts the group didn't know it was missing. Here's the part that changes how this whole thing feels from the inside. Most people treat every hangout, every group text, every invitation like a referendum. Proof they're finally, officially in, or evidence they're still, quietly on the outside. But here's the deeper truth. Belonging isn't a single verdict delivered on one magical night. It's a slow accumulation of ordinary moments that, one day, you look back on and realize have already added up into something solid. Read that again. There is no single night where you officially become part of the group. There's only a moment, much later, when you notice it already happened. Picture the scene. Months in. Someone in the group is telling a story from before you even knew them, and instead of leaving you out of it, they turn slightly, mid-sentence, and say, "Oh, you'll love this," and keep going, folding you into a memory you weren't even there for, because in every way that matters now, you already belong to the story of this group. Compare that to the earlier version of you, the one standing in the doorway at the start of all this, waiting for someone to notice you existed. Something in you settles when you realize that shift happened, not because of one grand gesture, because of every small, ordinary Tuesday you kept showing up for. That's when a room stops feeling like a test you might fail and starts feeling like a place you already live. And once you stop measuring every single hangout for proof, you free up enormous emotional energy. Energy you can finally spend on actually enjoying the people in front of you instead of auditioning for them. Here's the last one, and it's the one that ties everything else together. Most people believe that once they finally belong somewhere, the anxious feeling disappears completely and forever, like a switch flipping off for good. But here's the truth nobody says out loud. Even inside groups where you completely, undeniably belong, that old flicker of doubt will occasionally show back up. A quiet night where no one texts you first, a joke you don't quite get, a moment where the doorway feeling creeps back in for no clear reason at all. This isn't proof you don't belong. It's just your nervous system, doing what it has always done, treating any uncertainty as a potential threat. The same ancient alarm system that once helped keep you safe, now firing off over something as small as an unanswered text. Picture someone, a full 2 years into a friend group, catching herself spiraling over a group chat that went quiet for a day thinking, "Oh no, did I do something? Are they pulling away?" And then, instead of disappearing or overcorrecting, she just texts one person directly, "Hey, random, but are we still on for Friday?" and gets back an instant, "Of course, why wouldn't we be?" and feels the whole wave of doubt dissolve in 4 words. That's identity-level belonging, not the absence of doubt. The ability to face the doubt, check it against reality instead of assumption, and keep showing up anyway. This isn't a trick for silencing anxiety forever. It's what it looks like when someone has learned that belonging is a practice, not a permanent state you unlock once and never have to tend to again. And when you understand that, the doorway feeling loses its power over you completely. It becomes just a feeling, passing through, instead of a verdict you have to obey. So picture that room again, the one from the very beginning. 12 people, 6 conversations, you standing just inside the door. Except this time, you already know what that tight feeling in your chest actually is. Not proof you don't belong. Just your oldest circuitry, doing its oldest job, mistaking uncertainty for danger. This was never a checklist for tricking people into liking you. It was an invitation to become someone who can walk into any room, uncertain, a little uncomfortable, and stay anyway. Long enough for ordinary moments to quietly add up into something real. When you actually live this, you stop waiting at doorways for permission. You start walking toward one person, one honest question, one small offering at a time, and you let belonging build itself the slow, unglamorous way it was always going to. Belonging was never about finding the room that already had a seat with your name on it. It's about becoming the kind of person any room is lucky to make space for. If you want to know exactly what to say the very first time you talk to someone in a group like this, the actual words, the actual opening line that doesn't feel forced, that's the video I made right after this one. Wherever you are tonight, whatever room you're standing just outside of, you're closer to being inside it than it feels like right now. Just keep walking toward the table.